It's a fantastic day for us at Baylor at the Department of Surgery. Dr. Todd Rosengart has assumed the chair in our department and is here full-time now and has got a wonderful vision for the department and for the school, and I think it's really an exciting day, and I'm glad that the students are here for the interviews, because they should be able to get a good sense of where our department is heading over the next 5 years, and I hope you're excited about it as the faculty are. So Dr. Rosengart, please.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome. Appreciate everyone making it out this morning. I'd like to first welcome our resident applicants. We're thrilled to have you here. We'll be speaking with you in a lot more detail this morning, and I'm sure you're going to have a wonderful and exciting day. It's very propitious that you're here today so you can get a bit of a taste of the future of the department, where it stands and where we expect it to go. And I apologize for the Hollywood-type apparatus, but we'll actually be able to put this on the online so that residents in the subsequent weeks who are interviewing will be able to see this as well. Let me start with a couple of announcements, and again, I think this very much sets the tenor of the department. First, I'd like to announce that Dan Anaya has been approved for promotion to associate professor. So Dan, congratulations. And as well, Dan Albo is approved for promotion to professor, which is also very well deserved. And Dan is traveling. Congratulations. The second announcement, perhaps equally novel, is I learned this week that the department has 14 Texas super docs. We don't have super docs in New York, so I'm not quite clear what that exactly means, but most departments, I'm sure, would be thrilled to have 1 or 2 super docs. So the fact that we have 14 super docs in the department, I think, certainly says a lot about that. So more information, I think you can go to Texas Monthly and find out about our super docs. And so congratulations to our 14. So with that introduction, I think platform, it's truly a privilege and honor to talk to you this morning and offer really both a more formal introduction of myself to the department and present to you a vision for what I think is the modern era of healthcare. So let me start with a quote. This is somewhat of an inauspicious comment, I would say. I sort of take some solace in that I believe this quote was made before the faculty of the Department of Surgery at Stony Brook knew I had been asked to assume the stewardship of the department. And I also take solace that this is 4 years ago and was very much has occurred since then. And in fact, I would propose to you that what we accomplished in New York over the last 4 years is both, I hope, a suitable introduction of myself to the department, and as well a roadmap for, I think, what will be a very, very exciting time in the history of the Department of Surgery here at Baylor. We were, despite that somewhat inauspicious and challenging start, I think able to accomplish a significant amount up in New York in a number of different areas. First, in the area of program growth. We were able to increase our case volume in the course of 4 years by 1,500 cases annually, reflecting a 37% increase in our case volume. Our revenue in the department increased by 43%. Our recruitment was very significant. We increased our faculty size by 83% over the course of 4 years, 24 new faculty members, including 5 in research. And I think perhaps equally importantly, if not more importantly, very proud of the fact that our retention, I think, was quite significant, 96%, with one faculty member leaving only to take a leadership position in another position in another institution, and another faculty member who we had brought in expecting to go out into a community practice, successfully making that transition. In terms of promotion, nearly half of the department was promoted over the course of my tenure as chair at Stony Brook. with, at the time of my leaving, 8 additional faculty pending, that including the promotion of 3 of our faculty professor with tenure. Relevant to this morning, with our resident applicants here this morning, the training program in the department, in any academic department, I think, is really the core and the foundation of the success of an academic department, and we are quite proud of the accomplishments that we made in this area, as I'll detail in a few moments. The ABSITE score, correctly or incorrectly, for the good or not, is a very basic metric of the functioning of a department. We're able to significantly improve our ABSITE performances over the course of 4 years. I'll talk a little bit about that in more detail. And in the last year, we had the highest entry ABSITE scores in the history of the department at the 63rd percentile. Our last graduating class, I think, performed quite well, matriculating to institutions such as the NIH, Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, and Mount Sinai. We even have one of our residents down at UT, down the street. Didn't quite make it to Baylor, but almost. We initiated a very significant integration with the American Board of Surgery SCORE program and actually became a national leader in terms of utilization of this. I think very effective learning tool. And finally, interestingly, a story into and of itself. Despite the fact that exactly a year ago we got notice from the RRC that we were having an emergency review because of work hour violations, we took that on as a challenge, turned it around, and turned that into not only a 5-year certification, but certification with commendation. So I think that says a lot about opportunities offered and the ways that you can move forward when faced with challenge. Finally, I think the third basic component of any academic department is certainly research. And again, I think we made very significant strides in New York, essentially from a dead start in 2008, and went through a number of programs, which we'll talk about in just a moment, that I think made a very sizable impact in terms of our research footprint at Stony Brook. A little bit more detail in terms of faculty recruitment. When we came on in 2008, the department had been reduced or shrunk to a faculty of 29. We recruited approximately 25 faculty members in the ensuing 4 years, so an 83% increase in faculty size. And I think perhaps consistent with what we may attempt to do here at Baylor, it was clearly a build-out to the point when by year 3 of our recruitment, we were recruiting 2 fellows, Dr. Houston and Dr. Lowe, seen on the right, who their program directors said that were the best residents that they had ever trained. And then we were very fortunate. My timing was terrible because I would love to have her here with us at Baylor. But in the last year, we were able to recruit Rory Pryor, who had been the head of bariatric surgery at Duke, to come up to Stony Brook to take on the Division of General Surgery and serve as my vice chair for clinical affairs. If our family had not moved to New York, I unfortunately would have the good blessing to have her here with us today, but we couldn't quite make that happen. Our recruitments were really from across the United States, including UPMC, Cleveland Clinic, Georgetown, and Cornell, and I think very much impacted the entire tenor of the department, and I think is a absolutely basic strategic approach to building a department, and I think will be incredibly important as we grow the DeBakey department here. Reflective of, I think, making good choices and making good recruitments, these data reflect the fact that within 3 years, our new recruits were fully up to speed in terms of their clinical activity. And in fact, our last class of recruits within year 1 were functioning at the level of a fully established attending. And although we had a seed program, Stephanie will be glad to know this, similar to what is available here, our entire final class of recruits required no seed money at all. Because they were so active so quickly. And again, I think reflects a very positive and healthy clinical atmosphere that we're able to establish. Again, reflective of this is a depiction of our operating room volumes. And as noted, we increased inpatient volume by 1,500 cases a year and overall operating room volume by 2,000 cases, about a 35 to 40% increase in volume. Why we were able to accomplish that, we'll talk about in a minute, but again, a very sizable increase in productivity in a relatively short period of time. One aspect of growing the clinical program is clearly programs of excellence. The portfolio of what was available at Stony Brook was in some ways similar, some ways different to what's present here at Baylor. But by way of example, on the top left, we offered the very first in our region salivary sealoscopy. It took me about a year to be able to say that. And in fact, was able to attract a national and international patient population for this unique skill set. Our ENT surgeons in our department developed a robust robotic head and neck program, the pros and cons of which are a subject of another discussion, but again, they were significantly able to contribute to our portfolio. Dr. Pryor started a bariatric program from scratch, from a dead start, very successfully. And Kevin Watkins provided a very significant area of innovation in terms of the use of irreversible electroporation for the excision of advanced pancreatic cancers as part of a national registry trial. And really just a portfolio of some of the offerings that we're able to put in place. The marquee programs are significant and important, but quality is the core of clearly any successful program, academic or otherwise. And we became very invested early on, and I certainly know that the VA here and the program in general are national leaders in this aspect. But NSQIP and other data sets we'll talk about in a little bit were really at the core of our functioning as a clinical department. Depicted here by way of example is our NSQIP data for hospital-acquired pneumonia, which had been okay when we started out, but certainly not spectacular. We were at about a 1.3 in terms of our O to E ratio. And I bring this out mostly to show the chronological history of our progress in that regard, and not by happenstance, but through a concerted program of quality assessment, putting programs in place that allowed us to address our VAP rates in hospital-acquired pneumonia. We were able to bring that level down in 2010 to an odds ratio of 0.78, again reflecting what a concerted feedback program of data analysis, looking at the numbers, and then adjusting what you're doing and how you're doing it to improve quality outcomes. Again, thinking this is at the core of how to become a program of excellence. Resident student education, as I mentioned, again, I believe is absolutely at the core of a successful academic program, and we spent a significant amount of time focused on this. Our PhD in education, Shubha Dathatri, was actually visiting this week. She really accomplished quite a bit for us in terms of our resident student education. We're actually hoping to bring her here to join the department and help us build out the education programs, and we can talk about that some more with the resident applicants after this. Not only are the basics of blocking and tackling important to having a robust education program, I think in this day and age you need to be innovative and imaginative and do more. So by way of example, we're able to open a state-of-the-art surgical sim lab, again starting from a bare walls spilled out of a space, and added on to the program things such, and I actually quite enjoy this. Last year we had our first annual surgical sim lab skills Olympics, where we basically split up the resident class into 3 teams. They competed on FLS and the simulators and the like, and really made what in general is a rote learning exercise into really something that became part of the fabric of the department and quite a bit of fun. Likewise, on the right, we began in 2009 a resident research day where we basically closed down the department, all hands on deck. And by the 2012, we had 95% of the residents participating in terms of posters and presentations, and again made this a cornerstone of what our department was about. We have a mandatory resident research requirement at Stony Brook, which we instituted, at least 1 paper in the first 3 years and at least another paper in the senior years, and certainly we'll be looking at something similar for the department here. not only in terms of training, in terms of the academic skill sets, but I think also in terms of building residents as academic leaders for the future. I had mentioned the ABS SCORE program. This is an online link. And by way of example, one of our uses of the SCORE is that our M&M conferences were set up so that in advance of our Thursday morning M&M conferences, our resident program director, Dr. Scott, sent out by email links to the SCORE so that all the residents had read up on the cases, were often called on upon the audience to make sure they had actually done their readings. Everyone figured that out fairly quickly. And the SCORE actually became a very important way of enforcing didactic learning. Lori Schroyer, who is our vice chair of our research, likewise, and Lori unfortunately won't be joining us here, but I think is really a role model for a vice chair for clinical research that we'd like to recruit. Lori took what had been an idea of a standard journal club and turned that into what she called the Castle Conference for Critical Analysis Surgical Literature, and literally on a one-on-one basis taught our residents the most sophisticated knowledge of statistical analysis and how to comprehensively read journal literature in a way that really made them probably as adept as any residents in the country in terms of statistical analysis of clinical research. And certainly Castle should in the near future be part of the program here. Beyond what we do intramurally, we were involved significantly and began a mission abroad. We took 3 residents and 3 or 4 attendings. I went in the first year to Babahoya, Ecuador, which is a community up in the middle of Ecuador. We spent a week working with a very needy but very, very appreciative population, and I think that this has been an experience that our residents and our faculty equally enjoyed. For our students, we began a traveling fellowship to the American College of Surgeons, offering an opportunity to recognize great student efforts for those students who are interested in surgical training. And finally, similar to the Surgical Olympics, we began 3 or 4 years ago, modeled on the American College of Surgeons. In fact, we stole their programming, a resident surgical jeopardy. And the way we did this is we based the participant teams on the prior year's ABSITE scores, so the groups of residents who scored highest got to compete against the faculty, of course. Faculty was 3-to-1 over the 4 years, but the residents were coming on strong. And again, we spent the morning of one of our M&Ms with the entire department involved in surgical jeopardy. I played Alex Trebek, which was sort of interesting. And it was really a great experience for the department. And again, I think it put some substance behind the concept that didactic education is very, very important. So we had a lot of fun with this and hope to introduce this to the department this year. I think reflective of those efforts, this is a summary of our resident recruitments, our ACGME match results. And what I think it highlights is that in the last 2 years, as opposed to a somewhat down in depth recruitment. In the last 2 years, nearly all of our selections and matches were in the top 20 of our choices, also reflecting an ongoing increase in USMLE scores, and I think a track record that we all were very, very proud of. And again, I think reflecting the robustness of the education program. As I mentioned, our ABSITE scores continue to increase, I think as a reflection on the efforts of Shubha Dathatri and our education program in general. And as I mentioned, our PGY-1 scores were the highest in the history of the department, and our average scores as well also significantly increased over the course of the 4 years. Research is the third leg, I believe, that any strong academic department needs to stand on. And we, again, we're very focused on what made sense in terms of building the research program. Depicted here is what is essentially what became a core infrastructure for the department, consisting, as you see in the middle, of 3 translational research cores, one in cardiovascular research, which was our lab, focused on gene therapy and stem cells, a second lab that was focused on inflammation and immunology, which again became a core resource for the entire department, and a third lab focused on oncology. Perhaps equally importantly, in an area that we will certainly seek to emphasize in the coming months, was the development of a clinical core group led by Lori Schroyer. And again, this was staffed with clinical research nurses, database managers, biostatisticians, and grants managers. And where Lori Schroyer was able to create over the course of about a year was a quality database reflecting the clinical activity of the entire department, which we were able to translate into a research tool. So as our faculty came up with research ideas, they merely needed to go to Dr. Schroyer in the quality database, pull the data that was matched and merged not only from the Department of Surgery, Clinical Affairs, but the Departments of Anesthesia, Pathology, the hospital records, and we ended up with an extremely comprehensive database that allowed very, very busy clinical surgeons to do research as well. I'm well aware that many of our institutions, Ben Taub and Texas Children, Dr. Maddox's trauma database, all are very robust. But I think with the willingness of the investigators, there might be an opportunity as well to create a quality database that spans the department, and we could report out on Baylor results, certainly in a prospective manner, which I would think would take obviously a very legendary clinical track record and potentially take it to the next level. The other aspect of our research initiative involved what I think were sound investments in program development. And by way of example, I list a few of our efforts over the last 4 years. So we began a seed grant program where we essentially gave seed money to our junior faculty to encourage them to get involved, make sure that they knew this was an important aspect of what we thought was a priority for the department. And we awarded half a dozen of these over the 18 months or so that this was launched. As I'll note in a bit, by the time we completed, full 85% of our junior faculty were involved in the seed grant program, which I think was very encouraging in terms of it working. Notably, one thing I believe is not in place here is we had a very robust tissue bank program. We made this commitment to our school and to the Department of Pathology, wherein we committed to banking 100% of our oncology specimens and developed a very robust collaboration with Ken Schroyer, chairman of pathology, in order to ensure that we had a tissue bank that allowed us to do translational research in the area of oncology. I mentioned Lori Schroyer's research mind and really coalescing all of the research activities at the department, something that I think, again, will be essential here. And finally, the resident research training, which I spoke about a moment ago. In terms of productivity, this translated to a significant increase in our research effort through and across the department. And finally, and unfortunately, we do need to talk in this day and age about financial performance, even though we were growing our activities in a number of ways. Even though we began with a fairly significant deficit in the department, as depicted over here on the right, we were able to increase, as I mentioned in the beginning, our revenues, but at the same time increase our expenditure. Some of our analysts don't like to hear about increasing expenditure, but we bring revenues in so that we can spend it on worthwhile efforts across the department. So increase revenue, increase opportunities to invest in sound and healthy aspects of the department growth, and be prudent about that and translate that into a healthy and sound financial picture so we get the dean off our back and we continue to do what we need to do. So what were the lessons learned for me over the last 4 years? I think there were several. First and most importantly, it's all, my New York accent came out for a second, I apologize. It's all about the people. Certainly not only great faculty, but great residents and great staff. I think one of the great privileges of being introduced and having come to Baylor is we already begin with an incredible faculty, resident group, and staff, so our starting point is fantastic. The second point, and I alluded to this earlier, is, well, what was really the secret of how we're able to grow the clinical activity? And I would say that the answer is I'm not quite sure. I can tell you one thing that we did not do a lot of, because we ended up not needing to, is spend a lot of time on marketing or commercials or advertising or things like that. And I think, quite frankly, what we did is we're able to clear the obstacles for our faculty, and we let the surgeons be surgeons. We had a great group, but when we started, I think they spent a lot of their time fussing about not having the right secretary helping them, or needing to deal with paperwork in terms of requisitions and things like that, and quite frankly, they were being obstructed and deferred in terms of dealing with things which they really should not have been dealing with. What they needed to be doing is taking care of their patients, pursuing their research, and I think substantially what we're able to do is just the mechanics of clearing the obstacles, which is certainly something that we will be aspiring to and will be our goal going forward here. I mentioned the core infrastructure. I think the vital function of a department in a very complex environment now is to create a core infrastructure. So if you have a research idea, if you want to work with a resident, we'll have the people and the resources in the department as a core structure to make it easier for a very, very busy faculty, very challenging environment for resident education, to make it easier for everyone in the department to do what they need to do. We need to define the goals very clearly. In the second half of this talk, I'm going to attempt to start that conversation, and we need to set the course. And finally, we need to align the incentives to get there, and I'm going to talk about this a bit in the context of our new opportunity in terms of the Baylor Medical Center on the McNair campus. So one question that has come up quite a bit, even though I've only been here for 2 weeks, and is one reason why we're giving this talk today, is, well, Dr. Rosengart, what is this all going to be about? Are we going to focus on research? We're going to focus on clinical activity. Do you want everyone just to be in the operating room, or is education important? Where is the department going to go? And as depicted here, and I think hopefully has come across in my review of the last 4 years, it's clearly all three. And they're all important. In some cases, with some faculty members, it may be all about education. In some cases, it may be predominantly about research. In some cases, it may be predominantly about clinical. I think at a minimum, we all need to have at least some aspect of our involvement in all three areas. But certainly as a department, all three things are very important to us. You can't put a round peg in a square hole, as the saying goes, and I think we all bring different strengths to the table, and what will be important for each of us as we grow professionally in our professional development is to understand where we fit into this matrix, but as a department, all three, I think, are critically important. So let's talk about the Michael DeBakey Department of Surgery, which is why we're here today. First and foremost, and to some of the, certainly to some of the senior members of this department, I won't mention you by name because none of us are necessarily want to be considered senior, but of course this department has the greatest and most storied of legacies of any department, not only in the country, but I would say in the world. And anything that we do going forward, I think certainly for me, and I think for all of us in this department, that's why we're here. We owe a very great element of respect and deferment and thought to the great, great legacy of Dr. DeBakey. For the residents who are here, I listed the resident applicants as well, just a few of the just tremendous series of accomplishments of Dr. DeBakey. Each one is a story into itself. For the resident applicants, I would refer you to really what was an amazing article that I read just recently in the Annals of Thoracic Surgery that Dr. DeBakey himself wrote about the history of the ventricular assist device. Really an incredible story, but all the stories are. I would put to you in the context of how we move forward that Dr. DeBakey actually was, even before the word was really coined, one of the original disruptive innovators. And I think most importantly what Dr. DeBakey did, and I think there are experts far greater than myself in the room, and I look forward to learning from them. I think Dr. DeBakey was able to look at a situation and look at it differently and understand how to change it for the better. And I think this is certainly the roadmap, or part of the roadmap of how we as a department can move forward, and something I'd like to share with you in terms of some thoughts going forward. So yes, there is a great legacy to leave up to, but I think one of the greats of the DeBakey Department of Surgery is he and the legacy of this department has allowed us to start with what is a great new generation of leadership, only some of whom are depicted here. There are one of the really great assets of this department is just the tremendously broad and rich faculty. Again, some of which, if I could have made the picture smaller, I would have been able to squeeze even more on the slide. But again, some of the leaders in this room and depicted on this slide really are the foundation for the future of the department. By way of example, most departments would be proud to have one or two faculty members who had over 100 citations of their references as first to last author. We literally have over a dozen, some of whom are depicted here. Dr. Maddox, I think everyone in this room knows, is in his own right a renowned legacy and a legendary contributor to the trauma literature. This one of his articles on fluid resuscitation. Dr. Fraser only just recently had a lead article in New England Journal on a pioneering work in terms of the implantation of the Berlin heart in the pediatric VAD population. John Goss leads our transplant program, again is a world-renowned expert and leader in terms of the transplantation field. Dr. Caselli and Dr. McNair are at the height of their field in terms of understanding the pathophysiology and really the vascular biology of aortic aneurysm development. Dr. Fraser and Dr. Noon, again, leaders in every sense of the word in terms of the field of VAD development. And it just continues. And we could spend the rest of the lecture talking about the contributions of the department. But again, Dr. Lin in the field of vascular surgery, the work of Dr. Berger and his colleagues at the VA in terms of clinical quality improvement. The Michael DeBakey VA is the lead, one of the lead VAs, actually the lead VA in the country, not only in terms of size and volume, but in terms of its pioneering work in terms of quality improvement. Dr. Chen, who's our vice chair for research in terms of vascular biology, and Mary Brand in the field of pediatric surgery. Many, many more who I would love to include, not here, but again, I think reflective of the breadth of the tremendous academic firepower that we have in this department. There is, however, another reality that we need to think about. We are both blessed and challenged by our situation here at the Texas Medical Center, and not only are we a great department, but we are surrounded by other great surgeons, and certainly to some extent have the privilege of being challenged by others around us who need to give us the opportunity to be even better. So there is that reality of challenge. Let me offer to you, however, should anyone in this room shrink from concern about that challenge, that I come from another challenging environment in New York, and I sort of cut my teeth at New York Hospital. And for those not familiar with New York, this is Manhattan. And within a couple of square miles of New York Hospital on the Upper East Side, we had Memorial Sloan Kettering across the street. I think some of you may have heard of Memorial. The Hospital for Special Surgery and Orthopedics, Rockefeller University in terms of research. And if that were not enough, we had NYU down the street, Columbia Presbyterian uptown, Mount Sinai, crosstown, and then in terms of community hospitals, a younger sister to Ben Taub in terms of stature, Bellevue Hospital, although they had a few great surgeons at Bellevue as well over the course of history, etc. I think the takeaway message here is if you do it well and you perform to the level of greatness, you really don't need to worry very much about the competition, and the competition gives you an opportunity to excel in your own right. So one of the things that I think is great about the Republic of Texas is Texans don't seem to worry very much about what the other guy is doing. New York is sort of the same way. And I think that we as a department need to focus on being great and continuing to do the things that made this a great department, and not worry too much about what's happening down the street, because they'll take care of themselves as well. So in that context, there's an interesting problem about the Department of Surgery, at least there was. Most elite colleges of medicine, which I think certainly everyone considers Baylor, have an affiliated hospital. And by way of example, I show you depictions of Duke Medicine and Duke's new hospital, Hopkins and their hospital, Harvard. I don't know the name of the Harvard hospital. There's the Brigham and the Mass General, but they are sort of their own hospitals. And you may argue that that's a deficiency of the Harvard program, perhaps not. But I certainly think that the standard of the model is that a great medical school has a great hospital that they can call their own. Whether I'm right or wrong is probably irrelevant, because those who came before us decided that that was right. And as you know, down campus from us, we are building out and will be occupying this year the Baylor College of Medicine Medical Center, which, as we'll talk about, I think is just an absolutely tremendous opportunity to define the future of medicine and surgery in this modern era. So, what is the rationale for opening a new hospital? And what we've already decided is a somewhat competitive environment here at the Texas Medical Center. I think arguably there are a lot of very, very significant advantages. First, realistically, being a hospital associated with a medical center, medical school, and vice versa, is a very, very important source of the funding that we need to make the department work. So by way of example, the Department of Surgery at Stony Brook generated $72 million in funds. Hospitals call it profit or margin, but essentially these were revenues that became available. As we'll talk about, through a quality initiative program with our hospital up in New York, we were able to share a significant amount of that revenue for program development for the department. So on the other hand, if you don't have your own hospital, you may or may not be access to these funds, but certainly the alignment of those incentives is not as significant. Second, one of the challenges of practicing in different hospitals is the clinical practice metrics may or may not be aligned with what the faculty is interested in producing. And I think being in your own hospital that you lead, that you run, gives us as a department and Baylor as a medical school the opportunity to do it the way you would want to do it. And I think this is going to be a very important and exciting aspect of what we will be able to do at the new Baylor Medical Center. In terms of resident student training, being at your own place, again, allows you to do it the way you think is right. You call the shots, and you get to set it up the way you'd like it to be designed. And finally, all working on the same campus, or many of us working on the same campus at the same hospital, gives us an opportunity to break down silos of all being physically located at different locuses and perhaps talking, perhaps not, perhaps interacting, and often not. There are challenges. We talked about the elite field at the Texas Medical Center, and opening a new hospital in this environment is certainly an eye-raising and sometimes daunting consideration. There is excess bed capacity on campus, and we run the risk of duplicating efforts, which certainly would be a potentially deleterious scenario. However, when we talk about hospitals in the United States and the world today, the traditional model of how a hospital and hospital programs have improved is depicted as seen here. There are years and years and years of personnel, of culture, of processes, many of which don't work. And the process of quality improvement, and our colleagues from the VA know because they went through this challenge, is I would argue, an extremely arduous process of breaking down old cultures, changing them, convincing people that there's a new way, doing it differently, not necessarily easily accomplished, and certainly not easily. The New World Trade Center in New York, I think the McNair campus gives us an amazing opportunity to build it from day one. David Berger is, of course, as we all know, leading the effort, is vice president for the McNair campus. I think he's already shown that he's doing a very remarkable job, and has a very exciting project together, working together with Renee Miles and Paul Klotman in terms of building something that I do believe will be the prototype hospital for the modern era. So, how do we make McNair work? How do we make sure that what we build here is not only going to be successful but going to thrive? I think there are a number of key aspects to this. First, I think it needs to be unique. Just being good, just being as good as what's available on the Texas Medical Center campus is probably not going to be good enough. I think what we are going to need to aspire to is to do it not only well, but make it the very best that is available. I think there are a lot of different ways that we can approach this. First and most importantly, I think this is certainly the vision of Dr. Klotman and the leadership of the school, We certainly do not need to be all things at the Baylor campus. We need a critical mass of services and structure so that we can do it very, very well, but we certainly do not need to duplicate all of the offerings across the medical center campus. We're going to, as the expression goes, need to choose wisely, and I certainly think that is the beginnings of what we're putting together. Here we've formulated a new Baylor Medical Center strategic task force in the department, and we're going to look for their guidance to help us decide what are the critical programs that we want on the campus starting out and as we grow into the future. Second, and perhaps second to none, is we need to be very, very careful and thoughtful in terms of who comes on board over at McNair. We want, from the person who greets our patients when they enter the door to who's helping take care of them at 2 o'clock in the morning, I think our aspiration, I certainly think David agrees with this, is that we need to have absolutely outstanding employees across the board, all of whom get it in terms of patient service, in terms of clinical excellence, and all committed to the mission about making McNair the best hospital that has literally ever been seen. And finally, as I mentioned, I think the programs that we put in place at McNair need to be prototypes for the country. Again, these are very high aspirations, but I think not only are they important, I actually think they're critical to the success and not the failure, potential failure of this new enterprise. Aligning incentives between the faculty and the hospital are very important. So as I'll show in a moment, it is, I think, important. Dr. Klopman has already given assurances that this is his vision as well, that as we do well, we are able to share in the benefits of that with the hospital. That means additional funding going to the department. We need to be smart how we take care of our patients in this new era of healthcare reform. There is a reality that there are not infinite resources in terms of financial dollars, and we're going to need to be very accomplished practitioners, as I think the VA has led the way on in terms of taking care of our patients in a way that is resource-wise and prudent in terms of how we order tests. Not every patient needs to have a CAT scan upon admission, and we need to be thoughtful and smart about how we approach this. And finally, I think the third aspect of how we template out the program at the medical center is that service lines are going to be an important part of this. The era where we're siloed in the Department of Surgery and we hold at arm's length our colleagues in medicine, the cardiac surgery world, I think has been a leader in terms of cardiologists and cardiac surgeons working together on TAVI and TVAR programs, by way of example, is the model for the future, and increasingly we're going to need to learn how to make this work and embrace it. And lastly, I think that the research footprint of Baylor and the fact that it is so rich creates a tremendous opportunity to make the Baylor Medical Center successful. And essentially, I would tag this as making the medical center the NIH of the modern era. So we can take our translational research, we can take our clinical investigations and turn them into thoughtful and useful programs involving clinical research and making sure we are offering cutting-edge technology and access to new ideas in terms of our patient care at the medical center. As I'll show you, I think that with that capability, we have the opportunity to use social media to broadcast internationally what we're offering. And for every patient that we take care under the auspices of a research program, there's an opportunity to increase our clinical program as well. By way of example, this is our quality initiative at Stony Brook, where we set up metrics to determine and judge, grade our success clinically. That was translated into bonuses to the department in terms of increased revenue that we could use for program growth. And here at Baylor and at the medical center, I think there are tools that we now understand in the modern era that will allow us to achieve that. In preparing to come down here, I spoke to Mark Chasson, an old friend from Mount Sinai days, who's president of the Joint Commission, and Mark outlined 3 basic premises of being a high-quality or Six Sigma medical program, and those are, as depicted here, We need to lead towards near zero failure rates. We need to aspire to get it right every single time. We have to have a culture of 100% safety, and we need to be constantly looking at how we're doing things, how we're performing, and aim to improve it literally on a daily basis. This is Crimson data that we were using in our Department of Surgery in our last year on a physician-specific basis. In real time or near real time, we had reports in terms of our mortality and morbidity outcomes, our length of stay, other metrics that we could add on. And this real-time feedback in terms of how we're performing is, I think, a very important aspect of this process. Again, I mentioned research, and I can't minimize the importance of that, not only in terms of the academic profile of the department, but the clinical profile as well. As we talked about, we aim in the very near future to have a clinical research core. The first 4 jobs that we posted in the department are for a statistician, a database manager, research nurses, clinical trials manager. That will be core resources for the entire faculty and across the entire campus to take advantage of. We're going to be looking for a PhD with training in clinical research to serve as our director to assist the faculty in these efforts. And again, our aspiration, I think, should be to have a cross-Baylor, cross-campus, a combined database that when we report out our Baylor results using hopefully similar techniques, we can talk about not about case populations of 1 or 200, but instead 1 or 2,000, which I think will be highly impactful when we present nationally, internationally. And finally, our research effort. Again, we are blessed on campus with just tremendous colleagues and partners across campus. And I think one thing that the department needs to be able to bring to the faculty is the capability of accessing all of these resources. By way of example, there's already a tremendous amount of work going on in the department, just by way of a few, and there are many more, of course. Jed Nocturn's work in immunotherapy and neuroblastoma. Bill Fisher's work in terms of understanding the genetic profile of pancreatic cancers, Chuck Fraser's work with the Berlin Heart and pediatric VAD, some of the work that Dr. Caselli and McNair are doing, understand the vascular biology of aortic aneurysms, and on and on. A great platform to start from, but a lot that we can accomplish as well. By way of one example, this is some of my own work, our group up at Cornell and Stony Brook in terms of gene therapy. In 1997, we performed the first adenovirus administration to a human heart, at least to our knowledge, in the United States. We're still not there. It's not FDA approved. One of the great maxims of surgery is the perseverance of the surgeon, and we are persevering. So this year, hopefully in collaboration with the Texas Heart Institute and actually across campus, we received approval for the first placebo-controlled surgery trial. We're going to randomize patients to get angiogenic gene therapy to have the patients grow their own bypasses. And this will be a 3-to-1 randomization, first time ever done in the gene therapy field, one of the very few placebo-controlled surgery trials in the modern history of surgery. And we're very, very excited to bring this trial to the medical center. And I think this is emblematic of what we can do in terms of clinical offerings that literally began with some benchtop work back in the 80s down at the NIH, trying to understand the science of disease. Socialization becomes a very important part of this. So how do we get the word out? We're going to be doing this trial. There are many trials going on campus. I think one of the blessings of the modern era is this massive ability to communicate what's going on. So by way of example, we built out our website at Stony Brook over the last 2 years. Our web visits went from 500 to 5,000 on a monthly basis, just on the virtue of improving our technical imprint. Company that I was involved with starting called Vitals, which is a physician search finder, receives 11 million visits a month. These are patients looking for doctors, looking for information about health care. Again, I think emblematic about this modern era of health care and really the modern world that we live in. And this is was one of my favorite slides when I was presenting to the search committee on the virtue of the strength of our accessing the world community. We actually had at least one patient who came from Houston, of all places, to New York to undergo the celebroscopy that I talked about earlier. Again, going to the strength of the web and media outreach in terms of making sure we let the world know about what is going on within our walls. Because of the importance of that, one of the first appointments I've been fortunate to be able to make is I've asked Scott Holmes to take on a full-time role as our web coordinator. I think many of you have worked with Scott, and I think he's going to bring a lot to the department to, again, enhance our electronic footprint, if you will, in terms of letting the world know about what's going on here. So, how do we set the course? First, I think leadership excellence at all levels is very, very important and is a prerequisite. We must strive to better unify the faculty, make sure we're all understanding what the left hand and the right hand are doing, and hopefully have the left hand and the right hand shaking hands and not fists. Clinical productivity, research productivity, our department ranks 40th, not bad, amongst the 140 or so medical centers or medical schools nationally, but Baylor across the board ranks 17th. I think we should certainly aspire to be as good, if not better, than the medical school across the board. Our residency program, and our residents are here today, again, is a phenomenal program. We have great opportunity to become even better. We're ranked number 37. I think we should be in the top 20 as well. And finally, we are blessed, as I think everyone here knows, with just a wonderfully generous and supportive philanthropic community. I think we can take the talent and accomplishments of the department and enhance our philanthropic efforts. So sound leadership. Unfortunately, don't have time, and running short on time what I wanted to talk about, but hopefully we'll get the opportunity to show a video that I like to show of the Blue Angels. I think everyone knows that these as a high-performance air acrobatics team. And the video essentially shows the tremendous amount of teamwork between the lead of the Blue Angels and sort of the most junior officer. And that ability to work together as a team really highlights what you can accomplish with good leadership and a good team effort. So for me, the core values of leadership that I hopefully I will adhere to, and I hope all of our leadership in the department will: absolute transparency, not only communication, but over-communication. If you think it takes 3 times to get a message out, then you should probably get the message out 8 times. Consensus gathering, we're sort of fortunate to just have tremendous wisdom, tremendous experience, tremendous knowledge in the department. We need to all take advantage of that and build consensus on how the department can do things well. Fairness, and as I talked about before, the importance of feedback is absolutely critical. It's amazing how often we think we're at point A and we're actually at point B, and the value of feedback in terms of adjusting that, I don't think, can be understated. How do we bring the faculty together more than it is? I think the Baylor brand is one of the great brands in the world, and I think we can take advantage of that. We in the department need to build out the value of that shared platform through our efforts in research, education, and marketing as well. We can grow together clinically, learning from the different institutions in terms of how things are done best, and at the same time make sure that we're respectful of really some very, very great, not only programmatic entrepreneurs, but clinical entrepreneurs, in terms of making sure that we protect and respect what are going on the different campuses. The symbol on the right, I believe, Dr. Maddox, maybe you can correct me, is one of the insignias of the medical center. Sort of interesting, looks like a nuclear implosion to me, but hopefully really reflects the value of bringing forces together. Clinical productivity, I largely spoke about. The importance of centers of excellence, the value of quality initiatives. I think, interestingly, through the challenging days of years past, I think our faculty have gone out and built a de facto satellite network of referral bases at Park Plaza and UGH and a number of the other institutions. I think we've built ourselves, or the faculty has built itself, a referral network. Although I don't necessarily think that we want our lead faculty out in the hinterlands, I think it is a great opportunity to take advantage of getting the Baylor brand out there, and we should leverage it. We can go beyond that, and on the strength of the faculty, build a New York Hospital Columbia model of bringing expertise even farther out across Texas There's an opportunity now on the pediatric side at Children's Hospital in San Antonio, and I think we should model that out in other places. We talked about the internet, and we talked about the importance of our service as well. The House staff and to our applicants, again, are at the core of what we will hopefully be about, and we are aspiring to be about. Evaluation, incredibly important, making sure that we're doing it right. We'll bring a PhD in education on board, teaching our residents not only to be great surgeons but be great academicians needs to be at the core of what we're about. And some of the aspects of the expanded curriculum. Dr. Ollier recently mentioned to me that the Division of Plastic Surgery is looking forward to committing funds to help enhance the residency program in terms of support and potential incentives to improve and work well, and I thank him for that, a contribution from the Robinson Fund, and I think we'll have a very robust platform to present. Research productivity, again, we talked about as part of our initial bolus of support from the medical school. There's been $4 million pledged to this effort, and we plan to take advantage of that very quickly and very fully. So I think there'll be a lot of exciting things coming on in the next year in terms of core infrastructure. We need to award and reward research productivity, and by mandate, but I think by desire, we're going to be introducing a renewed compensation plan that rewards and awards research productivity, academic productivity in terms of teaching efforts and the like, as well as just pure clinical case revenue. The seed grant programs, again, something that we certainly want to introduce, as well as enhancing the trainee research program that we'll talk about in a minute, which again is, I think, at the core of what the department is about. Very briefly, again, by way of example, I just wanted to highlight some of what I think is very exciting work that we have going on in our laboratory in terms of stem cell therapy. So as many of you know, when hearts are infarcted, is depicted at the top right. There's very little that can be done in terms of enhancing function. The entire field of cardiac stem cell therapy essentially involves implanting cells into the heart. This basically did not exist 10 years ago as a field of investigation. A lot of work has gone on, and it's even gone to clinical trials. Our research became interested in the concept that looking at these implanted cells, as seen at the bottom right here, doesn't really make sense that these sort of cells are sitting in satellite isolation are really going to impactfully improve heart function. And even though the field didn't even exist 4 years ago, we've transitioned to the point now where the Nobel Prizing work of Yamanaka has taught us that you can actually take one cell type and unbelievably change it into another. So when I was in medical school, or certainly going into residency, you would have been laughed off to the stage for even suggesting such a thing. So not only has Yamanaka already won a Nobel Prize for accomplishing that, but in the last 2 years, beyond even creating stem cells from mature somatic cells, we think, and we've seen it in our own lab, and we've seen it in our own hands, I still find it hard to believe, you can now actually take 3 different transcription factors called GMT. As depicted on the left, you can take a fibroblast and turn it into a cardiomyocyte. That's crazy. 3 years ago, if you had said that, people would have thought you had lost your mind. But we've actually been done now. We've done it. 3 other labs nationally have reported on it. And what it offers, which is just an amazing opportunity, I think, is you can now take a large area of heart attack, myocardial infarction, put your 3 transcription factors in situ, take infarction and change it back into regenerated muscle. I bring this to your attention not only because I'm amazingly excited about it, but I think it shows that the importance that we can't just be doing things the way we used to do them, because things are changing so quickly. If you stay with the old way, you're going to be left behind. So we need to be engaged, we need to be looking at these things, and we need to be understanding it for ourselves. So we did. So in a rat model, we looked at this. We created an infarction by coronary ligation. We came in with angiogenic gene therapy, essentially fertilized the soil. We then gave the GMT injections and looked at results 4 weeks later. As depicted here, the top is our negative control, large area of infarction. On the bottom, what you see are now strands of look like fairly consistent myocardiocytes, cardiomyocytes. These are actually, we believe, we still don't know, hopefully some of the residents will come and work in our lab, sorry, Scott, and investigate this with us. But we think what we've actually done is taken fibroblasts and changed them back into induced cardiomyocytes and basically regenerated functioning myocardium, as depicted on the right in terms of outcomes. Even more dramatically, and again, even harder to believe, our negative controls are on the left. The blue is the area of fibrosis. You can see some large area of scar on the far right. You can actually see aneurysm formation. In our treated animals, little to almost no fibrosis, as if the infarction has completely disappeared. Again, we remain skeptical about this. We're going to continue to look at it, but the data are the data, as scientists are frequently say. Very, very dramatic results. In terms of functional outcomes, so we do echocardiograms on the animals, just like we do on our patients. The top bar is our treated animals. The bottom bar is our double negative controls, and we can see that we had significant improvements as we added on our therapies. So, very exciting work. We can translate that into an opportunity to share with our sponsors what is the very, very exciting ideas that are being generated not only in cardiac surgery but throughout the Department of Surgery. And I think there's an opportunity to partner with our philanthropy division and support to even further enhance these efforts to lead the way in terms of accruing medical and scientific knowledge. How do we put this all together? First, I think that the Department of Surgery and the Baylor College of Medicine is an outstanding platform to improving not only our own institution, but institutions nationally. I think the Baylor College of Medicine and this department embodies the greatest of surgical traditions, absolutely bar none. I think the McNair campus is a singular lifetime, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, truly one of the reasons why I decided to uproot and move south, is an opportunity to change the face of healthcare in the modern era. I think we already have a tremendous faculty, a tremendous staff, and tremendous supporters of this department, and I think those are great levers for the future success. And I think the knowledge and tools that we need to move forward are here, they're at hand, and they're ready to go as long as we have the commitment to use them. So let me conclude with another quote from Lao-Tzu. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Hopefully this was a good first step today, and I thank you for the opportunity to share these thoughts with you. Thank you.